Picture this. You wake up in the dead of night. You hear footsteps echoing out in the hallway. Maybe faint whispers right next to your ear. You might even see dark figures just standing there in the corner of your bedroom. Your eyes are wide open. Your mind is totally awake and screaming, but your body, well, your body absolutely refuses to respond. You are completely paralyzed. It's this visceral, deeply primal terror that feels entirely, undeniably real.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because while this whole scenario feels utterly terrifying, like literally something pulled straight out of a horror movie, modern psychology and neuroscience actually have a very specific clinical explanation for exactly what you're experiencing. It is not supernatural. No ghosts, no demons. It's a biological glitch known as sleep paralysis.
Welcome to this explainer. I'm going to put on my sleep neurology hat for you today to help demystify this genuinely terrifying, yet honestly totally fascinating experience. We're going to strip away the fear, the myths, the whole shebang, and look directly at the brain science. By the time we wrap up, you'll understand exactly what's happening inside your neurology when things go bump in the night.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover 1. The clinical presentation, 2. The REM atonia glitch, 3. When dreams spill over, 4. Clinical risk factors, and finally, 5. The hyper-awake brain. Let's get right to it.
Starting off with Section 1, the clinical presentation. So the primary presenting symptom here is what we call the trap. Your eyes are open, your mind feels fully awake, but your body, it absolutely refuses to respond to any command to move. As a sleep neurologist, I sit with patients all the time who are just incredibly distressed by this, and I completely empathize with them. The sheer terror of feeling locked inside your own physical form, it's suffocating. But the very first piece of clinical reassurance I always provide is this. Psychology research confirms that sleep paralysis is actually way more common than most people realize. If you've gone through this, you are not alone, and I promise you, your brain is not fundamentally broken.
Which brings us nicely to Section 2. The REM atonia glitch.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that the paralysis you're experiencing, it isn't a disease at all. It's actually a highly evolved protective mechanism. During deep sleep, your brain temporarily disables most of your muscle movement. In the neurology world, we call this REM atonia. Its entire purpose is to stop you from physically acting out your dreams. Think about it for a second. If you're running from a perceived threat or fighting a battle in your dream, REM atonia is the brilliant little safety switch that keeps you safely tucked in bed rather than physically jumping up and crashing into your nightstand.
But here's where the mechanical failure kicks in. In a normal awakening, your mind becomes alert and your body wakes up at the exact same time. That REM atonia safety switch turns off seamlessly. But in sleep paralysis, there's a synchronization error. It's a biological glitch. Consciousness returns before that protective paralysis fully disappears. So the mind becomes hyper-alert, but the body is quite literally still asleep. That tiny neurological lag is exactly what creates the terrifying sensation of being paralyzed.
Moving on to Section 3, when dreams spill over.
Let's move to and see how this builds, step by step. Step 1, the brain regains consciousness. You wake up. Step 2, as we just discussed, the muscle paralysis stubbornly remains. But here is Step 3, and this is the absolutely crucial psychological piece. Part of your dreaming system is actually still active while your conscious brain is awake. Because of this, active dream imagery literally spills over into your waking reality. You are, quite literally, dreaming with your eyes open.
Because of this intense overlap, patients experience profound sensory hallucinations. One of the scariest parts is this heavy, intense feeling that someone is watching you in the room. People hear whispers, footsteps, maybe heavy breathing sounds. They see dark figures standing right next to their bed. So why does it feel so terrifyingly genuine? Well, because your brain processes these horrifying overlapping sensory inputs as real. The transition between your sleeping and waking states is so confused that your conscious mind just cannot differentiate between the sensory data of your real actual bedroom and the hallucinated data being projected by your active dream state. To your brain, the threat is absolutely real.
Let's dive into Section 4, clinical risk factors.
So why does this happen? There are two major clinical triggers we need to talk about. First up, stress and emotional pressure. Psychology research clearly shows that sleep paralysis becomes much more common during emotionally exhausting periods of your life. An overstimulated mind just struggles to fully relax during sleep, and that disrupts your normal sleep cycles. Second trigger, irregular sleep schedules. Your brain depends heavily on stable routines. Sleeping at totally inconsistent times, staying awake far too late, or constantly disrupting your sleep cycle, it severely confuses that delicate transition between your sleeping and waking states. Simply put, the more unstable your sleep schedule gets, the easier it is for these terrifying neurological overlaps to happen.
And finally, Section 5, the hyper-awake brain.
This brings us to a really fascinating psychological concept, hypervigilance. You see, certain people naturally remain mentally alert even while they're resting. Their brains stay highly sensitive to sounds, emotions, or even minute environmental changes in the room. Psychologically, this hypervigilance puts them at a higher risk. Because their internal alarm system is just so darn sensitive, it makes it incredibly easy for their consciousness to activate suddenly during REM sleep. They're basically naturally primed to wake up before their body has the time to regain movement and switch off that REM atonia.
So the crucial point is captured beautifully right here. Once you understand how the mind really works, even the scariest experiences start making much more sense. As a sleep neurologist, this is the ultimate prescription I can give you. By applying objective psychological science, we completely disempower the fear of these midnight hallucinations. When you know it's really just your dreaming system spilling over, coupled with a temporary lag in your muscle control, well, those dark figures in the corners suddenly lose their power over you.
Which brings us to a final, provocative thought to consider before your head hits the pillow tonight. Is an unstable sleep schedule putting your brain at risk for a REM glitch? I really challenge you to evaluate your own habits. Manage your emotional stress, try to anchor a stable bedtime, and respect your body's transition into deep sleep. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. I hope you leave with both a sense of clinical reassurance and a fascinating new perspective on the intricate workings of your own neurology. Sleep well.